Okay. Did I open up the stream properly this time, or did it all go to hell immediately? This is the second attempt. Should be fine. Everything's fine, guys. It's almost the gathering of the Juggalos, guys. In 1 week. That's right. 1 week. You can find me out there in Thornville, Ohio, at the gathering, baby. Many other friends I've made along the way. It all leads to the Mecca of Juggalos, Thornville, Ohio. Let's drop a tweet out there in the airwaves to let everybody know I'm live. Live Juggalo shit. Hashtag. What's the hashtag? There is no, gathering hashtag. I've seen it a couple times, but it never sticks around. It was the gathering... Hashtag the gathering 2022. That was the last one I saw. You can always do hashtag ICP, but apparently that's a crypto. That's some cryptocurrency. So it's just crypto people looking at it, laughing at you. Which is fine. It's kind of funny, I think. The gathering. Hashtag ICP, baby. We got Southern Pollock in the chat. Whoop whoop, my brother. We are here to read another chapter of Juggalo. Insane Clown Posse and the World They Made. That's what it is, right? That's the title of this book. The World They Made. Juggalo by Steve Miller. That's right, in celebration of the gathering coming up. It is all of your favorite holidays rolled into one. It's Christmas, it's New Year's, it's July 4th, it's Thanksgiving. All of these things rolled into one beautiful weekend, or week, if you choose to make it so. So let's get on with this. We have entered part two of our book, Crime, Carnage, and Renegades. We got Ralph Lamau in the chat. Whoop whoop, my brother. Chapter 5. The Mighty Bruce Brothers. Mom, I had a dream of a clown. Joe Bruce, aka Violent J, to his mom in 1990. Dig this. Linda Bruce is stopped at a traffic light in Clawson, Michigan, a few years ago, sitting in her minivan, which was bought for her as a gift by her son Joe Bruce, whom she has never once in her life called Violent J. A Jeep Wrangler pulls up with all of its doors off, top back, 4 juggalos bouncing to a song. She looks, listens, a 60-something lady, and starts nodding her head in time to the song, which she's heard before. Hocus Pocus, The Bone. The kid in the passenger seat, early 20s, looked over at her with a furrowed brow. She's nodding in time, eh? Linda looks back at him. ICP? Yeah, how do you know? The light changed before she could answer. Not that Violent J's mom would tell the kid she was the mother of the music. Let me know if everything sounds good. If the music's too loud, if my voice is too low, let me know in chat. Once in a while, when he's got a little time and, well, the streets just look familiar enough to be enticing, Rob Bruce steers his truck into the old neighborhood. It's the shiftiest part of Berkeley, Michigan, and that says something. The Detroit suburb, 11 miles from the center of the city, packs 14,000 people into 2 and some change square miles, most of them white and solidly middle class, as in don't think you are going anywhere. There is no crime to speak of, some garden variety thefts and burglaries, but rarely a murder. Hell, there isn't a single mean street in Berkeley, and that's what Rob remembers of growing up there with his younger brother Joe and older sister Teresa. Joe Bruce, who would become Violent J, was born in April 1972, a couple of years after Rob and 4 years after Teresa. They were raised mostly by their mom, Linda, a lifelong Michigander from the Detroit area who'd had a run of bad luck with men. Rick fathered the kids and then left straight up after tossing a television set down a flight of basement stairs at Linda. When Linda and Rick were splitting up the money they had in their joint bank account, Rick took it all. It was 1974. The next man in Linda's life was a 50-year-old lineman at Chrysler named Lester. The kids were single digits old. Linda was 30. It was 1978. Lester beat on the boys and sexually molested Joe on numerous occasions. He was soon gone, and Linda worked low-skill jobs that almost paid the bills. Working as a night janitor at a church in upscale Birmingham was solid work. She also cleaned houses in the same ritzy area in her spare time. Thelonious Punk in the chat. Oh shit, yeah. I'm at work. What's that say? Ligas. Something like that. They were also on welfare, food stamps, and any other do-gooder social program you could get on. And in Michigan circa mid-70s, that's a lot of programs. They got the pre-sliced orange processed cheese, the powdered milk, and the blocks of butter. I'm reading that sentence, I'm like, who sells pre-sliced oranges? I'm like, okay. Now I get it. Other than that, the refrigerator was bare, save for whatever the church would bring by as part of its outreach to the poor. Maybe some Faygo in there on a good day. It was cheap and it was local, and it came in different flavors: red pop, orange, fruit punch, grape, root beer. Alongside the pop, inexplicably, was grapefruit. They ate it without sugar, which was too expensive. Side note, I recently tried Faygo cotton candy. It tastes just like cotton candy, which I don't actually like, and I just bought it because it was weird to me. It's pretty good. It grows on you as you drink it. Get that Faygo cotton candy. And I don't know why Faygo's suddenly showing up in New Jersey of all places, but hey, things cost too much and Faygo's cheap. So whoop whoop to that. Humble Among in the chat. Whoop whoop, brother. My brethren. 1 week. 1 week away. Gathering, baby. Linda worked hard to make the family into a unit. We had a really good childhood in the sense that we had each other, Rob says. We were always away, always out and having adventures on our own, thinking up things to do. We were poor, but we didn't need anything. We had our imaginations. We were always going out with our friends and into the forest and into the neighborhoods. We had all the kids. Sometimes it was hard, sure, but we didn't let it get us down. Joe was the baby, born in 1972, hazel-eyed with red hair dusting a high forehead. Everybody's got a fucked up childhood, Joe said. Everybody has tons of heartbreaking stories about how bad they always had it growing up. But my childhood was probably the freshest on the fucking planet. I wouldn't change one thing except for what my mom went through with her husbands. My childhood was without a doubt the greatest time of my life. They got to school age and Linda drove them to Angel Elementary in a shady Buick with rust spots the size of the fenders. When it was her turn in the carpool to take a bunch of kids, some of them asked to be dropped off around the block so as not to be seen in the sputtering heap. The Bruce brothers didn't care. They'd moved 3 times in the last 10 years in Berkeley, which was only 2 square miles. They knew everyone, and everyone knew they were broke-ass poor. The Bruce brothers were nerds. They wore thrift-shop clothes, and in the summer sported the striped white tube socks and Payless sneakers with gym shorts. They rode Huffy bikes when everyone else was cruising on Schwinn Stingrays. They loved anything dealing with fantasy. They didn't swear until they were teenagers. They never drank or smoked. It was out of respect for my mom. She had it tough enough. She didn't need some foul-mouthed kids running around, or some drunk kids or high kids, Rob says. Teresa covered enough of that ground for the whole family. She was in and out of trouble, and the fights between Teresa and Linda were epic, loud, glass-breaking, throwing shit affairs. The Bruce brothers remained outside of it. They were geeks. I wore the same pair of sweatpants all year long, Joe said. In grade school in Berkeley, the school would serve a hot lunch. It cost $1.10. My mom never had the money, so they would let you borrow it at school from the office. You had 3 days to pay it back. After that, they would announce your name and say you owed the office money over the morning PA announcements. It was always the same names all year long, every year. Rob and Joe Bruce. Every year the church my mom worked at would have this big sale, and that's where we got our clothes, Rob said. The Bruce family got a discount, half off, because Linda worked there. They got into their fantasies, a life where no one could reach in. For Rob, it was role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. I got into D&D at 10 years old, and I was playing with kids who were 13 or so, Rob says. My imagination was so sick, it was this great escape from reality, and it worked. If your imagination was strong enough, you could do anything you wanted and be anyone you wanted. It was so intense that the first time I kissed a girl was in a game, and it was almost like it was real. I lay awake in bed that night like it really happened. For Joe, his escape from the everyday, at first, was ninja movies and pro wrestling. When they tried to engage in what was normal, it didn't work. Rob grew up stout and handsome, dark-haired and smart. He had a couple of years on Joe, so girls hit his radar earlier. I used to have this crush on this girl in middle school, Margot, and I used to try to work up the courage to talk to her, Rob says. We were poor, of course, so we had this group that gave out food to families. Whenever they came by, my brother and I would get really excited because there would be some great things in there, like candy bars. One day, we were outside playing, and we saw the car with the food box pull up. Rob and Joe tore ass down that street. Rob stopped running when he saw Margot walking up to his door, box in hand. She and her mom were delivering the food to the needy. I was so destroyed, Rob says. A short time later, the Bruce family moved again, trading one working-class suburb for another. Linda married a Vietnam vet named Ron, and they went south to Oak Park, where the borders stretched to a particularly shitty scrap of the fabled 8 Mile Road. It was racially mixed, as opposed to the straight-up white Berkeley. That would help Joe figure out that he liked music. It was 1981. I got the single of Freeze Frame by the Jay Giles Band, Joe says. I had a babysitter. She took us up to Harmony House. It had centerfold on one side and freeze frame on the other. And I bought that bad boy, and I just played it and learned all the words to the songs. Little rusty here. I haven't read in a while. Now I feel like a fucking durr. I'll get this. I also do be eating these fucking edibles. I don't know. They work. What can I say? They work. Well, I'm taking a little breather. I'll mention we are streaming Tape Eaters tonight. We got content happening. I have exclusive footage from last year's gathering that I haven't shown at all. Some different camera angles. May or may not be a wet t-shirt contest that we might partake in. Got some video happening. We're going to do gathering stuff, but also on the menu is Chris Chan's trial, which is 2 days away. I don't know if it's trial or I don't know what it is. It's a court thing, but we're going to find out more is the point. So we have to talk about that. Tape Eaters tonight, probably around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gathering shit, Chris Chen. More animal attack videos, because why not? Check it out. Thelonious Punk says, I'm on a motherfucking construction site. We don't want to get banned. Yeah. Let me distract you, Agora Juggalettes. All the same to me, except last album sucked major dick. I was utterly repelled by cringe. What are you talking about? Talking about the last ICP album? They're not what they once were, that's for sure. But it is what it is. Like, same thing happened with goddamn Led Zeppelin, right? It's true. Joe and Rob took jobs caddying. Joe was 13 years old, and the caddy master from Birmingham Country Club came to the school to recruit some kids who may not be as privileged as those in the country club's orbit. They were right, and next thing he knew, Joe and Rob were hauling clubs for some of the wealthiest guys in the Metro Detroit area. They bought their own clothes for school, bought an Atari. They did really well, Linda says. They did it for 3 summers, and she took them back and forth, sometimes when she was going to and from her own job in Detroit's richest zip code. And when he got a large enough stash, Joe decided he wanted to know what it was like to take a ride in a limousine, Linda says. So he saved his money and took this girl he liked, but the girl's mother made him take her sister as well. He rented this limousine, and they went to McDonald's and said hello to everybody. What kind of kid does that? Joe's spark grew. He was a personality with a larger-than-life, born-to-entertain people inclination. He liked to talk. He liked to perform. He loved the idea of becoming someone else and having people watch him. Joe studied things. He watched and learned. His schoolwork was crap, but his dance moves were smooth. People were saying Michael Jackson was the greatest breakdancer and all that stuff, Joe says. So he studied Michael Jackson videos as soon as he could find someone with MTV. Then he ran his mouth. Man, you know I can dance like Michael Jackson? He'd pipe up over and over, sitting in the caddy shack the next summer. His colleagues were bored with his boasting. On other days, Joe's would amuse them with stories about the night crawls he and Rob would make, like putting on all black clothing and walking to the corner store through backyards and ditches, avoiding detection or even the glare of a headlight. It was another way to create another world, and it worked. So one day, when Joe asked one of his fellow caddies for $1 to get a cold drink, he was challenged. Sure, I'll give you $1, he was told, but you gotta dance like Michael. Everyone else laughed, except Joe. He got down and did an impressive worm in the dirt. He even did the Michael Jackson spin. They laughed again. His clothes were filthy from the display, and he didn't care. He got his buck. Joe also had a mouth to match his eroding sense of propriety. He realized he had nothing to lose. He'd spent his life at the bottom. "Are you rich?" Joe asked one of the well-heeled gentlemen he was working with one day. It was a weekday afternoon, and most people Joe had ever heard of worked every day, all day. If they worked the night shift, they spent the day sleeping, not golfing. "No, I'm not rich. I'm just average," the man said, casting an air swing with his Maruman driver. It is one of the most expensive pieces of golf clubs known to man, made in Japan and used by the best. Joe chewed on that one for a while. How the fuck can he be average, he thought. He should be claiming himself rich, that fucking bastard. Don't know nothing about golf. Don't know what a Maruman driver is. Maruman. Is that the proper pronunciation? Yeah, dude, I don't like future bass. What is future bass? It's like when Korn did dubstep. Yuck. Yeah, there's way too much dubstep going on in a lot of music. Or there was for a while. I don't know if that's still a thing or not. On to Joey Utzler. Is it Utzler? If anybody knows in the chat, one of those things I've only read, never heard out loud. Give me a pronunciation guide. I'd feel like an asshole if I was mispronouncing the name. Joey Utzler was born in 1974 with an abundance of energy. He hops when he walks, a long stride with long legs and gangly arms, like a spider on 2 legs. Upright and skinny, he grew to 6'2". He was always that way, an intense but amiable wanderer. Joey was the middle of 3 kids, including his older brother, John, and his younger brother, Mike. They shared a home in nearby Ferndale with a batch of step-siblings, a hairdresser mom, and a stepdad. The houses on the block were standard-issue World War II vintage. Boxy, maybe a small garage, mostly 1 story, with a patch of front yard and, in some cases, a larger patch of backyard. The Utzlers' real dad lived in Oak Park, which at the time had better schools, relatively speaking. The Utzlers went to Berkeley, then Oak Park. They knew no one in either place very well and didn't care. Primary schooling was not a thought, just a law that said they had to be there. Joey was still in elementary. John went to middle school with the Bruce brothers. Eustler? 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 That's not what I'm reading. That's what it is? Someone verify that. Eutzler? Is it Eutzler? Come on. Come on, internet. Come through for me. Someone verify. I feel like you know, Humble. It's not like I want to doubt you. But I feel like the S and the T are in the wrong order. Utslers. Eutzlers. Can I go with Eutzler, or does that just sound stupid? Now I feel like I have to stop and figure this one out for sure. You botched that. Well, we both botched it. So I'm glad it's a mystery to everyone and not just me. It's not like I go around calling these guys by their real names. And I'm sure that's the way it is for all of us. Eutzler. That's what we're going with. One day, John bumped into Joe Bruce in the hallway. John never hated or made fun of the Bruce brothers. He kind of dug them and their own world vibe. Joe looked up to John and Joey. Joe's musical tastes had moved on from Jay Giles, bouncing to an infatuation with Michael Jackson and the rap music that he was hearing every day, day in, day out, blaring from cars cruising down Greenfield near his house. Rob, too, was digging into rap. Not that they could afford to indulge in their tastes, though. Cassettes were running $7 a pop. Imagine that. Just imagine. $7 for some music. Now it's like, yeah, $7 a month forever for the rest of your life. John came home one day and they told Joey they were heading over to hang with the Bruce boys. Cool, Joey thought. He was easy like that. My brother brought Joe back to the house in the back of my mom's old 60s station wagon, Joey said. He put me in a sleeper hold like a little woman. I was 10. The first time I met him, he made me cry. Once they all started talking, Joe, Joey, John, as Rob was off playing games with his own crew, they all discovered that they loved two things, music and wrestling. They were all fans of the Kung Fu movies that were on late nights and Saturday afternoons, Charlie Lum's Kung Fu Theater, martial arts theater, Kung Fu classics. There was more lo-fi video of martial arts on Detroit TV in the 80s than there was in China. They also dug wrestling, the big-time stuff with all the glitz and performance art. They loved it enough to build a wrestling ring in the backyards of both the Eutzlers and the Bruces and start tag team wrestling, or the TTW, their own federation. They changed it to National All-Star Wrestling. The ring had a rubber hose strung around it. Alex was the ring announcer, speaking in a tone that would make Michael Buffer proud. He stood out in the center as the guys got their costumes on in the house. When they were ready, they'd communicate with Alex via walkie-talkie, and the entrance was made. They wore masks and took on fantasy names. Joey was the Rhino when he didn't wear a mask, the White Tiger when he did. Joe was Daryl Dropkick Daniels. Very much reminds me of my own childhood, where it was all about horror movies and pro wrestling. We would have the fucking trampoline wrestling federation, and we'd like go trash pick the neighbors and get like aluminum trash cans to hit each other with, and fucking once in a while, and this is when you'd strike gold, baby. You'd find fucking light tubes in the trash, and you get to bash each other with light tubes. Hell yeah, man. Somewhere out there, there's like a VHS tape with like me and my friends hitting each other with objects. Someone will find it one day, and it'll be like an archaeological discovery. Dave the Impaler in the chat reminds me of my own adulthood. They offered free hot dogs, fresh from Ma Bruce's hot dog steamer, and Faygo to anyone who showed up. The old Ma Bruce's hot dog steamer. I hit my girlfriend with that one last night. She didn't like it at all. Joe loved the gimmick out of the gate. It was all style and bombast and smokescreen. Wrestling personified it. Rap embraced it. Joey understood as well that to make great art, you have to start with something people want to get into. And it always came back to the sound of music. For Joey, music was being pushed at him since elementary school, where it was just like a melting pot. So you got a little bit of everything from everybody, he says. Like obscure urban music to rap to soul to rock, anything you could think of. My older stepbrothers were hardcore Ozzy fans. We always used to call them wolves. You know, the long hair and jean jackets, he said. And my parents were hippies, so they played stuff like Seeger, Queen, Motown music. I never really got into all that much. I never really got into that all that much. He fancied himself a baseball player when he was going to elementary school. The Detroit Tigers won the World Series on his 10th birthday in 1984, and he thought they won it for him. He forgot about sports when he started to teach himself to draw and DJ. Collectively, they all realized they were from another place mentally. We just weren't part of the rock scene at all, Joe says. We were suburban gangster wannabes. Their friendship was sealed when the Bruce Boys moved to Ferndale in 1988. Linda and Ron had scraped together enough cash to buy a $30,000 house. It was a real step up, a little frame off 9 Mile Road. They now lived a couple of blocks from John and Joey. John was schooling Joe on the music he and Joey were digging. They were getting on the city bus to catch shows. Those big package rap shows. Big Daddy Kane and Third Base. And mix with everybody, Joey says. One of the best was at Royal Oak Music Theater with Boogie Down Productions. I had to see everything. I was just checking it all out. One of the first rap groups Joe loved was pre-Baby Got Back Sir Mix-a-Lot. So I guess that explains exactly why there's top billing for Sir Mix-a-Lot at the Gathering this year. It's the Gathering of Dreams. So I guess that's Violent J's dream, is to have Sir Mix-a-Lot at the Gathering, getting a bottle rocket to the eye. We'll see. Maybe. Pre-Baby Got Back Sir Mix-a-Lot. But nobody else wants to see pre-Baby Got Back Sir Mix-a-Lot. Only Jay wants to see that. Everybody else wants to see post-Baby Got Back Sir Mix-a-Lot, right? So, when Anthony Ray was an emerging rapper from Seattle, putting out singles on his own label, Nasty Mix. Anthony Ray? Who was that? What's he got to do with Sir Mix-a-Lot? It's in the same sentence. Whatever. They all went to see Mix-a-Lot in Detroit and came out of there stunned. We gotta do something, Joe said the next day when the three had absorbed what they had seen. It was a massive bill, with Awesome Dre, Prince Vince, and the Hip Hop Force opening. They were local and they killed. Joey agreed, as did John. So the fake white gangsters, bored kids with a bent for music, formed the JJ Boys. Our names all started with JC, Joe explains. They knew a kid with a karaoke machine who called himself Scratchmaster T. Whatever. Is it Scratchmaster T whatever? Is that his name? Or is it Scratchmaster T, period, end of sentence, whatever is next sentence, period? I'm not sure on that one. Scratchmaster T whatever. They experimented on and exploited the kid. Fuck him. They went over, played with his toys, and walked out with the song. The party at the top of the hill. It started like this. We're the JJ Boys on the microphone stand, kicking it live with a Faygo in our hand. Master T is on the table, not working in the stable, and on his Adidas jacket is the Faygo label. Damn, son. Bars. Joe became Jagged Joe. John was Master J. And Joey was Kangol Joe, named after the UK-based hat maker he favored. They used a couple of tape players and some ragged beats, and they did their own cassette tapes, scraping up money from the $80 a week or so Joe earned caddying, and then teaming that with some blank cassettes Joey boosted from the local Harmony House record store. The Faygo name drop was simple. Run DMC always talked about Adidas. The Beastie Boys would put White Castle hamburgers in their songs, Joe says. So I said Faygo because we always had some. It was our trademark. They were sporting a poor man's hip-hop look, with patent leather basketball shoes, tracksuits, and anything with the Adidas name on it. Flea markets sold the fake gold chains, and they draped them on. Joey loved stealing hood ornaments, like the Beastie Boys used to wear, VW, Mercedes, whatever. They drooped them around their necks. It was a monkey see thing, but it was a start. Everyone is just going to be yelling "Play Big Butts" during his set, Dave the Impaler says. It's like the Freebird of the rap world. Yeah, I like the term wolf too. Edibles be getting me, dude. I got fucking cotton mouth like crazy. I'm getting tongue-tied. Have you read Behind the Paint? I have not. I can't find a PDF of it or any other sort of file. And to buy it, it is like $200, I think. It's not easy to find to purchase. Not like reasonably, at least. I haven't really read many reviews about it. I'm questionable whether I want to read a whole book in the way Violent J speaks. Like, I don't know. He's not known for being an author, and I would read it. I don't know if it's something I would want to spend that much time on. Not that, frankly, I'm only reading this book instead of that because I found it. I just wanted to read a Juggalo book. Is it good? I feel like Jay, the way Jay comes off, and especially the guy who's going to talk about his career and all the people he's met and everyone who's helped him out and all the friends he's made, I feel like it's going to be nothing but him being very gracious and respectful. And I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing, but it's like when I'm listening to like a wrestling podcast, for example, I don't want them to be gracious and respectful. I want dirt. And I feel like I'm going to get dirt better from a third party. Audiobook on YouTube, huh? I didn't know that. Even more reason to not do it, to not stream it, I should say. But I will listen. He's not that gracious. Good for him. He doesn't need to be. Every time I listen to him, especially when talking about wrestlers, and I feel like it's because like pro wrestlers are still celebrities to them. Like they're celebrities in the music world, but they look at pro wrestling and they're still starstruck by these guys. So I feel like they seem that way when they're talking about wrestlers in particular. I don't know how they would talk about other rappers, except like Eminem, but everyone's heard about that. At the same time, there was substance. Joey was in love with music. More than John and more than Joe. He was collecting singles, setting up turntables in his bedroom, and figuring out how to make the sounds he heard in his head. He got the Herbie Hancock single, Rocket, and used it to learn DJ scratches. Africa Bambata singles were popping, and Joey was on it. When the movie Beat Street came out, Joey followed the South Bronx Dreamers in the cast, seeking musical fame. He began collecting music via theft. Joey could steal anything like a pro. He could steal anything like a pro. A combo of foolhardy guts and nothing to lose. They'd head up to a nice part of town and go through the stores, turning an item they liked around on the rack. Joey would come through and snatch anything facing the wrong way. He was like David Copperfield, and soon enough, everyone had some nice duds. He was just a kid. What were they going to do? Send him to prison? They met Bill Dale in the neighborhood. Bill and his brother Doug had a stable home with a regular stay-at-home mom and a truck driver dad, the latter of whom was in remission from cancer. The Dale family had a work ethic that made the ethics of other locals, look sick. To make up the money lost from Mr. Dale's lost trucker revenue, the family took on a Detroit newspaper route that covered 1,100 subscribers. Up every morning at 2 o'clock to get the paper drop site at 3, and then to fold and pack the papers. Holidays, weather, nothing kept the paper from being delivered. Bill stopped going to school in 9th grade. Before the cancer took his dad down, he wanted to ride with the old man in the truck, but then the paper route took up his time. He dug rap, like most of the other kids around him, NWA and anything else associated with Dr. Dre in particular. He was just a music fan when I met Joe and Joey. I was just a music fan when I met Joe and Joey, Bill says. I never wanted to play or anything, but I just liked them and what they were doing. The JJ boys sucked. They became the inner city posse. But there was little music involved. It was a street gang, whatever that entailed for confused, broke kids with no money and few pals. While they were playing at becoming MTV heroes, Rob enlisted in the Army, 1st Sustainment Command, and trained at Fort Bragg in South Carolina. While he was there, Jay missed him terribly. Joe was kind of left out, Ma Bruce says, so Jay took his thumb and hitchhiked to Bragg. Don't worry, he got there, Rob told his mom when Jay arrived. Ma Bruce was freaked out with worry. Hitchhiking? Jay was a little lost, and his big brother was there for him. So was Burt Reynolds. The military had one of its shows of appreciation for the soldiers, and Reynolds was hosting. Joe wanted to go, so I gave him one of my uniforms so he could get in with everybody else, Rob says. Just like they did at wrestling events back in Detroit, they snuck backstage to meet the talent. In this case, the talent was happy to see them. Jay and Rob standing there in army fatigues. I want to thank you guys for all you've done and all that you do, Reynolds said, looking at Jay and then Rob. And Jay was ready. Man, you know that movie Cannonball Run? I loved that movie. And remember that line? Why do you do it? Reynolds was ready. For the hell of it, he quoted him back. Jay was ecstatic. It was one of his favorite lines ever. Jay was homesick, though. He missed Detroit, so he hit the highway once more. It was an adventure. Once he got back, Joe kept on trying to figure out how to have a life. It's a question we all ask. They approached the music industry like wrestling, Humble says, and that's why I love them so much. That's why, I've always got it. I've always got ICP. It always made sense to me when it didn't to other people. In the same way that wrestling made sense to me, it didn't to other people. Yeah. It's so genius to capitalize on that niche. And it's a niche that not everybody can hit, and once it's filled, it's kind of filled for a while. Now we're at the point where ICP kind of needs their protege. Hopefully that can get solidified. Humble says it was in the South that Joe encountered hardcore racism. That's where his distaste for it comes from. I get that. And there's a thing, there's a difference between like actual racism that like affects people in day-to-day lives. And then there's like, earlier in this book, I'm reading about how like the SPLC is targeting ICP as like a hate group. And it's like there's political racism that's like made up to suit political causes and to stir up drama and fighting in the country. And then there's like real stuff. And I think ICP, like they came up, just like really wanting like equality and freedom. That's something they believe in. You can see it at the gathering. And I think lately it's kind of been like popular to be anti-racist, and I think they've been using that too to spread their own message, and I think that's genius in its own way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because they're not being like the mainstream media and the SPLC and all of these groups that drum up drama just to like make you angry and want to fight something. They're not like that at all. They're doing the opposite. And frankly, I think that's why the establishment hates them so much. The wrestling at Joe Louis Arena, the Joe to locals, became a monthly thing. Joe and Joey met Rudy Hill at one of the professional wrestling extravaganzas they went to in downtown Detroit. For $1, they could catch the downtown bus. They could sneak into the porous Mammoth Arena, the city's primary sports and concert venue. The place held 21,000 souls. When anything wrestling went down in the late 80s, Joe and Joey were skulking around the back docks where the equipment loaded in, looking for a leak, be it an unlocked door or a security guard on a smoke break. For Rudy, wrestling was a religion. He was Rude Boy inside his head. A pro wrestler with no match. He too rode the bus over to the arena from Mexican Town in southwest Detroit, never missing an event. On a fall day in 1986, he was waiting for the doors to open, stalking the back entrance in hopes of catching a wrestler coming in. He got autographs, pictures, and a few fuck yous for his vigilance. On this day, he had a fortuitous meeting with two strangers. Joe and Joey, on a patch of grass, were performing their own wrestling moves to kill some time. "What are you idiots doing?" one of the bystanders asked them, looking on. There was a small ring around the two, but no one was impressed, until Rudy joined the crowd. When they finished showing off the best of their moves, he came up to them as everyone else walked away. "Hey, you guys are really good at this," Rudy said to them. He looked up. Joe and Joey were already growing into their thin frames, and both already had some height. "Thanks, man. We have our own wrestling federation. You should come check it out," Joe said. "We live in Ferndale." Rudy checked it out. "These guys are fucking rich," he told himself. Rudy's dad humped the line at the Chevrolet Gear and Axle plant in Hamtramck? That's weird. And it was a solid living, especially considering that the family had originally come to Detroit from Juarez, Mexico, where $3 a day was considered making it. But when Rudy got a load of Joe and Joey's world, well, compared to Mexican Town, everyone was rich. And it was all togetherness and love up there. I had never seen such a thing like that, even though my family was great, Rudy says. Then Joe and Joey came to visit Rudy. A match was made, friends for life. My parents loved both of them. They were so damn respectful and well-mannered. They'd say frick when we were all saying fuck. They'd come over and we'd get some quarts of beer, and they just didn't care. They didn't drink. They drove around Mexican Town, where there were real gangs instead of the imaginary street hoods that Joe and Joey and their crew were conjuring in their heads. The Latin Counts, X-Men, Young Guns, it was for real here. "Wow, look at those dudes," Joey said, seeing a group standing off a street corner one night. He lifted his finger, pointing. "Put your fucking hand down. You're gonna get us killed," Rudy told him. One night, they were out cruising in Joe's Plymouth Volare. Volare? I think that's what that is, right? His stepdad Ron had bought it for him in hopes it would inspire him to work for a living. For now, it was just getting him around in this new world of street thugs. Joe hated violence. He was the first one to try to talk it out. But he loved the scene, the imagery. They drove to a local street festival. Joe, Rudy, Joey, and Rudy's cousin Randy. "Did you miss that turn?" Randy said to Joe. He was ragging on him pretty good from the back seat. "I thought someone from the Ritchie area would know better." The shit continued for a while until Rudy had heard enough. It was 3 a.m. "Joe, stop the fucking car," he said. "What? This is Clark Park, man. We can't just stop here," Joe said. Clark Park is just off the Fisher Freeway, a bad place to be at the time. "Stop the car," Rudy repeated. Rudy jumped out of the front seat, pulled some kid from their crew from the back, and beat him severely with a series of punches to the face and head. The kid stayed down. Rudy jumped back in. "We're just going to leave him?" Joe asked. He felt bad, even though he had been the target of the kid's insults all night. That sealed the deal. Joe moved in with Rudy's parents. Life at home was getting harder, with pressure from his parents to do something with his life. Rob was serving his country. His mom was all over him to get a job. "You're screwing around and nothing is going to happen," she told him. Then, "If you're not going to work, you're not going to live here." So Rudy's it was, a world away from Ferndale, but it felt like home. Most families were on food stamps and struck with poverty, working bottom rung service jobs, McDonald's, Wendy's, whatever. Joe did some jail time for scaring a local girl he was pursuing. More likely, he scared her dad. He threatened on the phone some girl he liked, Ma Bruce said. "I never thought he would end up in jail over something like that. He called her and they were fighting, and he would hang up and she would call right back, and so he said something like his crew would take care of things or something." Dude, these fucking full send Delta gummies, my god. They work, I can assure you. Not a sponsor. Give me a promo code. Come on, full send, Canna. God damn. Fire. Hamtramck. Menelay in the chat says pronounced Hamtramck. That doesn't make it any better, okay? That's not a justification for having such a stupid name for your city or whatever. The girl's parents must have thought Joe had an actual crew. They pressed charges, and Joe landed in front of a judge who handed down a restraining order. And when Joe went to a school dance that the girl was also attending, she narked him out. Next thing he knew, he was in the county jail. The bail wasn't much, but it was more than the Bruces could come up with. So he spent the Christmas holidays in lockup, only seeing his relatives in the visiting room. He got out, and he and Joey continued to hit the matches constantly. They also loved music, and kept seeing as much as they could while keeping their dreams alive. Oddly, for all the crime and poverty, no one fell into drugs. That was for losers. Joe and Joey were not going to be losers, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. So when they decided to do another music project, they just took the Inner City Posse name and used it. Joe wrote a song, Something to Say. Something to Say was the name of the song. It was a stunningly unoriginal gangster rap lift, but when he busted it out for everyone, they loved it. So he made a tape at home, bouncing sound from portable tape player to player, like so many other kids were doing in bedrooms all across the world, as no one could afford studio time. He would take his songs to his mom to see if she understood what he was trying to say. If she did, he was communicating. If not, he would try to explain, which would help him rewrite. Enter the Ghetto Zone was a shabby stab at rap, but Joey and John dug it so much they wanted to do something like it with all of them together. The Inner City Posse started recording tapes and handing them out. Rudy distributed them in southwest Detroit. Rob was jamming it for his soldier pals in Saudi Arabia. People said they liked it. ICP felt encouraged. Rob had a friend he met while gaming, Alex Abyss, who co-owned a record store, Hot Hits, in Roseville on Detroit's east side. Take the tapes over there and see if he'll sell them. Drop my name, Rob said. Yeah, you're Rob's little brother, Alex said when Joe brought the tapes in. He agreed to carry the tapes, $5 a crack. He keeps $3, and ICP gets $2. He sold 19 tapes in 4 days. To them, it was like going platinum. Joe and Joey were still hustling for work. They lost jobs as fast as they got them, but one job they got together would shape their music. But one job they got together would shape their music, set it aside, and eventually make them special. And it started at a rock joint in downtown Detroit called St. Andrew's Hall. Mutt and Jeff is how one DJ there recalls them. Joe worked the register and Joey watched the crowd, as he could spot a troublemaker from 50 feet. They were really nice, really white trash high school dropouts, is how a coworker, John Licardello, aka Speck, described them. Speck was a brawler bouncer, a rough guy from Orange County, California. To him, they were just wide-eyed kids and hard workers who really knew what they were doing. It was like this was a place they understood. It was. Joe and Joey studied the hard rock and punk bands of the era. Helmet, Rage Against the Machine, Bad Religion, Monster Magnet, and they started to see the merits of guitars. We were in the middle of all this rock, Joe says. There were these songs that we learned that everybody moved to. They went into working in St. Andrews as straight rap, Joey says. Then it started morphing. We got this bigger picture, we broadened our horizons, and we got these rock influences. They also watched a host of hapless local bands walk on stage and tune and meander and dick around. Joe and Joey learned that it paid to hit the stage with drama and rage right away. That's how the winners did it, and failing to do that is how locals stayed locals. Soon they went to a proper studio to record something else. There was $5,000 from Alex's mom, a daring bet that Linda Bruce wouldn't have taken even if she were flush, but she wasn't. I tell you, if I would have had that $5,000, I wouldn't have given it to them, she says. I had faith, but not that much. She must have had it to lose, or at least if it didn't work out, she was going to suffer without it. She had courage. Dog Beats came out in early 1991, a 4-song cassette featuring a guy in clown face paint on the cover. They released it on their own label. At first it was going to be called Mad Paperboy Records. There was this kid in the neighborhood who was a funny paperboy. We loved him. He had this crazy hair, Joey says. They decided instead on Psychopathic, with Joey as in-house artist. He modified the paperboy, replacing a stack of newspapers in his hand with a hatchet. Later, cops would think the hatchet was a primary part of the violence they claimed ICP embodied. Imagine if they had kept the newspapers. How would the police have spun that? Alex stayed on to manage them. Dog Beats taught them a new skill that they discovered was just as important as delivering songs: promoting. It was the name they used for marketing, and Joe and Joey spent days and nights in the local Kinko's creating flyers and artwork for their endeavor. ICP would print up thousands of flyers. They would come in and have to load them out on a handcart, a former Kinko's worker says. They had no social life. Nights and days were spent on the band, inspired by the image of the clown-faced buddy they put on the cover of Dog Beats. They became Insane Clown Posse. They'd paint their faces and be wicked clowns. They would operate under the Dark Carnival, a traveling entourage of spirits. It was creativity and fantasy to the nth degree. A backstory and its own universe. Each of their albums represented a Joker's card, which would reveal an element of life, from birth to death to salvation. It was heady stuff for a couple of dropouts. In terms of pushing themselves as musicians, they had no mentors. The St. Andrews experience opened a door. I'm glad we didn't learn from anyone, Joey says. We smoked everybody. People are lazy. We knew we had to do everything twice as hard as everyone else. Their first album was Carnival of Carnage. It came out in fall of 1992. John, Joey's brother, played in a couple of songs, but he was committed to chasing girls while Joe and Joey were monastically focused on music. John was out before the record was. On Carnival of Carnage, a song called The Juggalo. On Carnival was a song called The Juggalo. Juggla juggla, fuck with the juggler. You can't fuck with the juggler. It's true. Anyone who says otherwise is a liar. By 1994, ICP was selling out shows all over Detroit and doing damn well in some other areas of the Midwest, playing most of the songs on Carnival. At one show, as they wrapped up the juggler, Joe looked at the kids, faces painted, devouring every lyric. "I'm a juggler," he said, looking down at the front row and scanning to the back as best he could in the lights. "That makes you juggalos." With those 4 words, he launched a million identities. Brings us to the end of Chapter 5, Chapter 6, entitled In the Malenko Zone. I want to remind everybody once again to catch us live tonight. Be live again tonight to talk about the Gathering of the Juggalos, which is coming up in 1 week. 1 week away, folks. Am I right about that? Am I getting ahead of myself? It's 1 week away, folks. And I can't wait to see all my homies there. God damn. So yeah, go to yakovalive.com, hit that merch tab. Humble Among says, I love their hustle and work ethic so much. Very inspiring for me. For me as well. 1 week till parking lot. Parking lot counts. Don't try to discount that. That counts. Yeah, so when I've been most successful, and like I thank God that I don't have to go to like, I don't whatever fucking place I'd have to go to like scan flyers or whatever and go around and post them. I don't have to do that. It's the fucking internet age. In some ways that sucks. It means that there's a million people trying to do it and I'm just one in a million. It's saturated. But at the same time, it means if you are willing to work harder than everyone else, you can rise above them. And, you know, I've had the most success. Here's the key. Anyone out there trying to promote something, here is like fucking the way to do it, the fastest way possible. Start a meme page on a popular platform. When I say platform, popular platform, I mean Facebook, Twitter, Instagram probably, and like TikTok. Is there anything that competes with that stuff on the same level? You start a page on there, you do memes that are like tangentially related to your stuff or you or whatever your style is. Because that's like what's going to get people clicking. And what you do is you put a link to whatever your content is in the fucking post with the meme. And if it like goes viral and you get a shitload of shares, like people will click that link. If you just post a link and like with your promotion, people like immediately think like, oh, you're shilling to me, and keep scrolling. Tip out there for people trying to do the hustle today. With that, I will catch you all soon enough. Soon enough. I'm telling you, we're going to talk about Juggalo stuff, Chris Chan, animal attacks, probably some paranormal stuff. We're doing it tonight on Tape Eaters. Hope you're there.